Hello and welcome to our customer panel on automation intelligence. My name is Tony Beeston and I work here at Broadcom. Today we're very fortunate to have both Bill Rosner from Capital Group and Mihir Hardas from Morgan Stanley to talk about their experiences on adopting automation intelligence in their own organizations. We'll find out why they did it, what they gained from it, the challenges and how they overcame them, as well as what the future holds. Remember to post your questions on the Q&A panel during the session. Although this portion is recorded, we have everybody here live ready to answer you. Just before we start, you will have read that the product name is Automic Automation Intelligence, often abbreviated to AAI. This used to be a product called JAWS from a company called Terma. You may hear many or all of these from our speakers. They're all the same thing. So let's get started. Bill from Capital Group, welcome to the session.
Hi, Tony. How are you doing today?
Excellent, thank you. Could you introduce yourself to the audience and give us an overview of your business, your key goals, and how you and your organization support those?
Yeah, happy to. My name is Bill Rosner. I'm an AVP with Capital Group. My responsibilities include workload automation and investment portfolio analytics and characteristics. We use these systems interchangeably often, mostly to facilitate the processing of our overnight batch, which then drives data that we provide to our investment managers in the morning.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bill. And could you give us some more details on what your automation landscape looks like? You know, what products you are using to support it?
Well, besides Automic Automation Intelligence and AutoSys, right? We're also using ServiceNow, Splunk, Dynatrace. On top of that, we have many proprietary systems that we have built that often wrap these systems to provide data that's customized to what Capital would need.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for that. And hello, Mihir. Welcome to the panel.
Hello. Thanks for having me here. Hi, Tony. Hope you're doing fine.
Excellent, thank you. Very good indeed. Could you also introduce yourself to the audience and give us an overview of, again, your business goals and how you and your team support them?
Sure. So, hi all. My name is Mihir Hardas, and I work as a Vice President with Morgan Stanley. And as you mentioned, I am leading a team within horizontal support services. And what that means is my basic goals would be to have a successful batch delivery against preset SLAs, also have the required tool integration to predict the delays, and finally build and leverage those metrics. And by doing this, we wish to achieve increased stability, optimize our workflows, and focus on automation as a key driver for efficiency. So that's like the overall goals that we have. In terms of landscape, as you mentioned, as you know, Morgan Stanley would have a very large setup. So we have basic departments, and I belong to institutional securities group and the production management team that manages all such a large BU, which would be more than 1/3 of Morgan Stanley. So the basic goals would be, we wanted to have a platform that is extensible and allows multiple scheduling systems to be integrated into our landscape. We also wanted to affirm OLAs and SLAs, which would also satisfy a regulatory requirement. And then most importantly, a visualization of critical paths, which is where JAWS helped us. And ultimately, the whole idea is to completely move from a reactive model to a proactive model, where we are predicting a particular delay. But those would be the objectives as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much. And again, what actual products are you using today, beyond obviously AAI that you've already mentioned?
Right. So apart from that, we do have homegrown tools, but of course they are not very scalable. But they do satisfy a very specific need of a particular department, though. The landscape would be very rich. I mean, as Bill mentioned, we also have Splunk, then we use ServiceNow, we also use Peregrine softwares, and then all that would be a part of end user services and other groups. But essentially, these are the ones that I would touch upon.
Yeah. So thank you, gentlemen. To be honest, I think it would be good for us to all start at the very beginning. So what kind of challenges and business demands were you facing that prompted you to investigate automation intelligence in the first place? Mihir, let's start with you.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, the primary use case for this was since our front to back systems are very large, and if I just pick and choose, say something like risk systems, we all know there are at least 7 or 8 kinds of risk systems only within Morgan Stanley. So we have common upstream systems, and then the batches flow downward, and there would be much more than thousands of jobs where it becomes very complex. So there are common upstreams, and if there is a delay, a big group of downstream systems simply end up chasing the same upstream. So the key driver was deduplication of this effort. So many teams spread across globally, and there's a big effort which is put into chasing down the same upstreams. That was one. And second important thing was visualizing the critical path. How do I get to this job which is being delayed? What lies beyond, and how did I land up in this situation? So those primarily would be the key drivers. The other operational excellence related aspects would follow, which is, should there be a delay, how efficiently and how quickly can we communicate to the right teams? So quite funnily, there was a situation where, since we knew what is the true trigger of the delay, many times over a period of calls, they used to send out notification to about 100 different groups, and we used to call it as a nervous alert. So many times it's a reverse situation where I am several layers downstream, and I say, why the hell am I getting this email? I have not impacted for a change. So it worked two ways. So AI fit that picture very well.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much for that. And Bill, was it the same at Capital Group?
Similar. I think one of the things that are the two main things that we wanted to deliver were new capabilities, just the ability to do raw automation. In addition to that was the delivery of information. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we have the same needs that Mihir and his team would have. We have SLAs that are driving our batch every night. They're very important to Capital. We know that we need to deliver information to our portfolio managers early in the morning before the market's open for them. And if we're not meeting our SLAs, we're not able to do that. They get a late start date. They're not as effective. They're just simply not as effective. So they need that to happen. We need to be able to see that automation working. And that automation is our batch, right? We're developing a better process as we're using Automic Automation Intelligence. We're wrapping it with other tools that give us that information, and that provides us with those details that we can then go back to our users and say, hey, here's where we're falling down. Here's where we need to improve. We can focus them in, and that's a huge benefit for Capital, huge benefit for the speed at which we deliver.
Again, thanks. I think it's really interesting to see what you share as challenges, but also that what is different, and that automation intelligence is a common thread for potential resolution. Let's go and see how you started all this off. Was there a specific use case you started with? So, Bill, how did you get started with automation intelligence?
Well, it really started with a project. We were changing out our background accounting system, a large effort. It comprises a large percentage of our batch. We needed the ability not just to understand what was happening with these changes and see where we were creating impact during the change, but also a way to simulate what that timing looked like. We needed to know that as we moved from one system to another, that we weren't going to go from not meeting SLAs X amount of time to not meeting SLAs virtually daily, right? We needed to understand that very clearly, and we were able to use the critical path functionality that Mihir talked about. We were able to use a lot of the things that automation Automic Automation Intelligence provides in order to do that. More than that, it provided us with a single solitary use case to focus on. And that's really important. We were able to look at that and basically say, okay, we did this, we made a difference, we got some good feedback from it, and we were able to use that to help us move on to other use cases.
Oh, fascinating. Thanks very much. And Mihir, how did you get started at Morgan Stanley?
Right. So as we were discussing earlier, it was primarily deduplication of effort. Since Morgan Stanley is a very large plant, if I may say, we have many localized automations already in place. So there are times when our leadership, they do mention that we need to talk to each other horizontally more often. And people are very vigorous with having localized automation. So there is a very big dissipation of energy. They do not add up. So it all started with a project, something called as SIM, or Simple Initial Margin Calculator. In simple words, it is nothing but a margin calculation, which is the business deliverable. And it would take data from 4 different asset classes, which would be like the upstreams. Now, the problem in this would be, we wanted to know if this margin calculation is delayed, it is because of what precise reason? What is the, if I may say, quote unquote, culprit? Who is the one which is not giving us the data? That was how it started. And the second aspect was when we started onboarding settlements job streams. The use case here was criticality. Settlements is so very critical that if we can predict something a few hours before a particular set of jobs, which would help us calculate, help us predict what the average completion time is, as opposed to the SLA, then it gives a much needed headroom for the team to operate with, which in a typical reactive mode, it's like an SLA is breached. So what? It's a reactive model. So we wanted to move to a proactive model. That was the second job stream, which is currently live in production.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how it started. And where we are right now is we are at a point where we would be onboarding treasury systems, which is again a very well known in terms of criticality, and it's common across banks also. So we would want to scale up as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thanks very much for that. I mean, obviously, when we're trying to implement anything, there's always, the challenges that we have to deal with. So were there any specific barriers or challenges you had to overcome to adopt automation intelligence? Mihir, let's stay with you.
Right. So initial challenge was multifold. One was, of course, a user education, which would which becomes very important when we are working with very large setups, because it was a very big mindset change for people. From we are not going to monitor 1,000 jobs. It is that last job in your batch flow, and a critical path would be calculated on its own. So one is in terms of user education. Second kind of challenge is we still do not have a way to create job streams in bulk. That's another, I would say, a challenge. So we are still working towards, can we have creation of job streams by way of small batches, by way of APIs, through the REST APIs. And we are trying to work out the challenges and the slowness associated, and what could be probable workarounds for that. Mm-hmm. But those are the primary ones. The second one was more in terms of scaling up. And the first is, how do we go and have that? It's a change in mindset as well. And then what it simply means is we cannot get a bunch of jobs from, say, Autosys and pump it everything into jobs. So that integration piece, there is a big piece of work out there where we are picking and choosing. That may become a manual activity. Mm-hmm. So that's like second part of it, where it's like a manual effort.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for that. And Bill, was it similar for your group?
Yeah, I would say so. Usage is a huge barrier, right? You want to show that you're providing value. You want to show that you are making a difference. In order to do that, you really need to work with your partners right? And your partners, they don't know much about automation intelligence, right? They don't have a really good perspective on the benefit that you can provide. So you have to demonstrate that to them, and you have to take a leap. So usage and adoption are a big challenge. Understanding the information is another one. You're getting this flood of information back to you. You've got all these screens that you're looking at, and you've got all these tools. I mean, when we went through the number of tools that we work with, there's quite a few of them that are all providing you with different set of data. The benefit that you get out of that completely outweighs the challenges. When you finally get to provide your users with an insight or something that they hadn't thought of that helps them with priority, it helps them with decision making, then they start to see the value and those challenges start to evaporate. So it's a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thanks for that. So, we've talked a little bit about the journey to automation intelligence, but what was the outcome? How did your organizations really benefit from the project? Bill, what did Capital Group get out of automation intelligence?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, we were able to deliver the project that we rolled out our accounting system. We were to deliver that with minimal impact to our batch. And over time, we've only been able to improve. We were not meeting our SLAs about 2 out of every 5 days. That actually led to the attrition of my team because we were having so many issues in that. But beyond that, now, many months later, right, years later, in fact, we've been able to develop a level of consistency to where it's rare that we don't meet our SLA. In fact, it's been quite a long time since we've missed it. And it actually, once again, it lends credence to why you exist. It develops a really an understanding of, hey, this team has value, and here's what they can provide. I think one of the best things that it's developed for us is being able to take automation and marry it with information. And so now our automation is actually developing and building out all those portfolio characteristics I was talking about earlier, where our portfolio managers are getting automated reports every morning with the data that they need to make decisions. So they're getting it faster. They don't have to develop it in a filter or a screen or something on a tool that they have. It's there waiting for them when they get in the morning. And that has been a huge benefit for us, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think we always think of the business benefits, but that benefit of getting credibility with the community that we serve, that is also a huge internal benefit. Obviously, the company's not going to go on.
Yeah.
And here, what benefits did you see at Morgan Stanley?
So primarily, the dependencies which were there across systems were manifest probably in this way for the very first time in recent months or years. So we could get different groups talk to each other. SLA discussions typically are not very nice discussions. So when we have a central repository like thing where all the SLAs are manifest, then it streamlines the entire batch flow. A lot of discussions and blameless postmortems are also being automatically facilitated. So that was like an immediate benefit. The way it works at Morgan Stanley is we have our own front end, what we call as dependency central. And it has got many attributes which are tailor-made for Morgan Stanley. And we get the predictions from JAWS. That's how the model is. So over a period of time, the management, they decided to invest in JAWS, and they wanted to have an incremental approach where we start onboarding small batches, and as and when we see these obvious benefits, which is SLA management, predicting failures early in the game so that a headroom is created for the team. Then they would summarily disengage their old ways of monitoring, which could be like a check nanny. Check nanny is also a kind of tool that we use. It will simply alert if a particular AutoSys job is going to fail. So we realized that we have got a very large number of such localized automation. So the approach is, as you're reaping the benefits of dependency central and JAWS, you would summarily disembark the old ways of monitoring. And that's how the investment in JAWS would slowly increase. So that was one. So one of the tests, what we call as confidence building measures, the way we work is what alerts do we get from JAWS that is compared with a particular incident or an outage situation. And gladly, I could share many success stories. For example, if there is an outage in system A, look, we got the alert from JAWS couple of hours before even you realize that there would be an impact. That is probably the biggest benefit.
Yeah, I must admit, before working here, I did used to work in operations like many in the audience. And if you do give me some time, I can work quite good miracles. If I don't have the time, we do have the problem. So yes, that plays to my past, certainly. So, okay. Lastly, gentlemen, having successfully gone through the journey, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's just starting out on the intelligent automation journey? Mihir, let's start with you.
Sure. I think the most important factor would be investing in the right set of people and giving them an overview that it's going to be a big change in our mindset. From a reactive way of monitoring to a proactive monitoring, making them understand that, look, these are real-time predictions. There are times when the tool set can predict, and then there would be times where the tool set or any prediction engine cannot predict. I must say I face challenges there where people would say, like, if there is a job failure, why can't you give me the predictions? I mean, no prediction engine in the world can give you predictions in those circumstances. Other most important thing is have a very defined project plan in place. Break it down into smaller chunks and ensure that the feedback loop with the user is kept warm always. And I think for me it was a very tough time. No organization would invest in en bloc into a new tool or product. So this incremental approach, feedback loop, and showing a success story where we should have some way to do a reconciliation that your traditional tool set gave you alerts at this time, whereas a prediction engine gave you a predicted to be delayed kind of status, X number of minutes or hours ahead in the time. That's when, the wheels start turning and people start taking notice of this new tool. I think those are the ones. Lastly, I'm sure people will embark on this journey, but the point at which they decide to scale up, that would be my last piece of advice. Ensure that they do not commit back to their management and analyze all that they can do. I think that would be my last piece, though.
Thank you very much, Mihir. I think that's some sage advice there for moving forward. And Bill, what piece of advice would you like to give to the audience?
Well, I would agree with Mihir in all of what he said. Start small, right? That is one really important piece. Start with a well-defined use case. Your ability to escalate and expand the product's usage is basically determined by how successful you are. So you want to have, like Mihir said, you want to have a well-defined plan. You want to have feedback coming back to you. You want to have a strong team. And I would add on to what Mihir said and say that your team has to be structured in such a way that they are strong and not really willing to take no for an answer, because you're going to be told no a lot. And that's a difficult thing, because if you don't have somebody who's willing to really push back and say, well, what if we did this? Ask those tough questions, push in such a way that they can actually get the results that you need, you're going to find yourself at loggerheads more often than not. In addition to that, I would say another piece of advice would be to think way outside the box. One of the early decisions we made was to tailor data for Capital Group, and that meant that we had to build additional products. It means that we had to do work with Terma and now Broadcom to build out capabilities that could not just impact us positively, but now that they're going to be able to share with the rest of the community. Things like simulation. That has been, those ideas have been great. And if you're not willing to think that we need to go down that path, if you're not willing to actually take a chance and say, what if we did this? You could still be successful. You're just not going to be as successful. Really pushing the envelope has been one of the hallmarks of our group, but you have to do it in a smart way. You have to start small. You have to build up little iteration by iteration, sprint by sprint, and really to get that done is more important than having the idea. All right, you have to deliver on the idea. So there you go. That's the advice that I would give.
Thank you for that. And you've heard it from both our experts here. Don't try and boil the ocean. Set yourself some focus, and don't take no as the definitive answer. Push back. So thank you very much. On behalf of both the audience and Broadcom, I would like to thank you both, Bill and Mihir, for your insights and advice on adopting automation intelligence. I hope you, the audience, have enjoyed the session, and remember to go to the Resource Center to get more details on how automation intelligence can help you. I'll let Bill and Mihir say goodbye now. Bill, first to you.
Thanks for joining, everybody. I hope this was useful for you. Looking forward to your questions, and hope you get a lot of success with Broadcom and their products here.
And Mihir, the final word from yourself.
Yeah, thanks all for joining the session, and looking forward for questions, reflections, and observations. This is a fantastic place that we are working currently, and we welcome everyone as well. And I hope we have a very nice, mutually beneficial relationship with Broadcom, and this would definitely pave the way for next generation tool set. So thank you again.